contains disturbing themes and content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Not one wrestler came to his aid.
Because remember, I told you, people believed. And they believed when you saw blood that it was serious.
Everybody was laughing and joking, bragging about and talking about their match.
All right, well,
it was like it never happened. Then everybody got mad at me because I kept talking about it. I couldn't stay out of it. I saw a man get stabbed to death right in front of me. How can I stay out of it?
If you follow me on Twitter, it isn't a secret that I love professional wrestling. The athleticism and stories that wrestling has been able to showcase over the years has always been eager viewing for me. And while there are very questionable moments and storylines looking through a modern lens, the element of questioning what is real and what is all scripted can still be found today. Moments like many of the weddings in wrestling and the explosive death of WWE Chairman Vince McMahon still show that wrestling tends to have a very kind of animated and wild side. But in the 1980s, wrestlers were the attraction. As a kid, who wouldn't want to see two larger-than-life characters go to battle? It was this blurring of the lines of reality and fiction that caused one of the most tragic and infamous cases, where blood ran cold in a warm, packed stadium during the summer of 1988. In the late 80s, it was hard to find a product that was hotter than professional wrestling. While the WWF had been taking a stranglehold on the North American market, other territories had to build and create their own stars to keep relevance and ticket sales high. One of the hottest yet more controversial stars in the business was none other than the character Bruiser Brody. Real name Frank Goodish, he became one of the most feared bad guys in the sport of pro wrestling.
Everybody knows what happened this week. I was contacted by my attorney about coming out here on national TV last week and calling Dusty Rhodes a great big fat overstuffed pig. Well, I want to make sure everybody knows that Dusty Rhodes is a big fat egotistical blowhard, and I don't mean instead of a pig, I mean in addition to a pig.
A monster in the ring with a reputation and look of a wild man that would make you bleed. Brody was infamous for his hardcore matches, which brought a gritty realism to every match he participated in. In the predetermined sport of pro wrestling, realism is what would draw people to pay for your shows. Companies such as World Class Championship Wrestling, Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which is now known as WWE, and All Japan Pro Wrestling would constantly request Goodish's services because of his character work and dedication. However, Goodish wasn't always the caricature that he portrayed. Born in Uniontown, Pennsylvania on June 18th of 1946, Goodish grew up playing sports and even played at West Texas State before becoming a sports writer. It was after his stint at West Texas State that he had his first pro wrestling match in the National Wrestling Alliance on April 29, 1975, using his real name as his ring name. It wasn't until he reached his first appearance with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation on May 11, 1976, that he's credited under the most known name of Bruiser Brody. He worked through many promotions, but it wasn't until his runs in All Japan Pro Wrestling in the late 80s that Goodish became more interested in the business side of wrestling. Goodish was a booker in many promotions, and in the wrestling world, the position of booker was the person who determined the outcomes of the matches. However, Goodish had a reputation for booking himself as a winner most of the time, to maintain the aura and desire to see his character. Of course, this didn't sit well with many others who were trying to break into the industry and get noticed by the more lucrative promotions. One of Goodish's most infamous examples of taking liberties with talent came in the World Wrestling Council's tour of Puerto Rico in the mid to late 80s. Bruiser Brody would take on Jose Gonzalez, who was under the ring name Invader No. 1. Brody, according to many wrestlers he worked with, would brutalize his opponents and work stiff matches to bring more authenticity to the matches. This, of course, was at the cost of the health of his opponent. After a rather rough match in Puerto Rico, Gonzalez was riding to the hospital with fellow wrestlers Tony Atlas and Special Delivery Jones, where after the match, Gonzalez reportedly said, "One day I'm going to kill that man." After his stints in All Japan Pro Wrestling, Goodish wanted to invest his money into a promotion based in Puerto Rico, the World Wrestling Council. Having already worked as a talent there, Goodish wanted to become a minority owner in the company, much to the dismay of Jose Gonzalez, who not only wrestled as Invader No. 1, but was also the booker and right-hand man of WWC owner Carlos Colon. After talks with Goodish's investments had begun, Jose Gonzalez's 3-year-old daughter had actually passed away in a swimming pool accident. Combined with the grief of losing his daughter, the rumors of Gonzalez losing his job had begun to actually take a toll on him. He began to blame Goodish, of all people. On the night of July 16th, 1988, Goodish had been offered a ride to the wrestling venue by Tony Atlas, after Jose Gonzalez had failed to get him from the hotel. After getting to Juan Ramon Loreal Stadium in Puerto Rico, this is the story according to wrestlers Tony Atlas and Dirty Dutch Mantell, who have gone on to record these accounts to news sources, documentaries, and really any other kind of media involving Frank Goodish's death. After arriving to the venue, Atlas, Mantell, and Goodish noticed that Jose Gonzalez, who had failed to pick Goodish up for the show, was actually sitting in a circle with owners Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica, not speaking. After Jose Gonzalez and Dutch Mantell had left the dressing room, Goodish had approached Tony Atlas about doing a drawing for his son, before Gonzalez came back into the dressing room with a towel wrapped around his hand. Gonzalez asked Goodish to have a conversation with him in the shower section of the dressing room. Thinking it could be about match plans for the night, he agreed. "Brody, can I talk to you for a minute, please?" Goodish walked into the shower with a picture of his son in his hand as Tony Atlas was stared down by Carlos Colon and Victor Jovica, before Goodish began shouting. Not knowing what was going on, Atlas looked towards Goodish to see a knife being raised by Jose Gonzalez. Atlas and Savio Vega quickly grabbed Goodish and moved him out of the way, the knife striking Goodish's ponytail and cutting it cleanly apart. Carlos Colon immediately sequestered Jose Gonzalez in the shower as Atlas lowered Goodish to the ground. According to Atlas, Goodish had such deep cuts that he felt Goodish's intestines coming out of his abdomen.
So I grabbed Brody around the waist, his intestines fell on my arm. I pulled Brody back. Brody said, "Don't let him hurt me, brother." I said, "Brother, ain't nobody gonna do nothing to you." So I laid him over on the floor. Brody laid on the floor for about 45 minutes, and I stood over him and everything.
45 minutes after being stabbed, he
Yeah,
laid on the
because
floor.
this was at the beginning of the show. People was coming in, so the ambulance was stuck behind the traffic.
Okay.
Because we had just gotten there, so people was coming in. And back in them days, these stadiums used to sell completely out. They soccer stadium, what they were. So I stood over Brody, and finally the ambulance came. So the guy tried. It was an elderly guy and a woman, and they tried to lift him, and they couldn't lift him. So the elderly guy looked at the wrestlers. I mean, every wrestler in that dressing room said, "Can one of y'all help me?" The wrestlers in that room did this.
They turned away.
Turn away.
Wow.
Every wrestler in there, turn
Now,
away.
why do you, in your opinion, why would they do that?
Didn't want to get involved.
According to Dutch Mantel, wrestler Mark Youngblood had been alerting people that Jose Gonzalez had been the one to stab Goodish, and as they approached the locker room, Mantel recalls seeing the figures of Victor Jovica and Jose Gonzalez arguing behind a translucent shower door, before Gonzalez stormed out of the locker room with his keys, a torn shirt, and his gym bag. No one stopped him from leaving the premises. Paramedics arrived around 30 to 40 minutes after the commotion had begun, before Frank Goodish was taken to the ambulance. Atlas accompanied Goodish to the emergency room where they began emergency surgery, after Atlas had to threaten a doctor into helping Goodish after waiting for so long. According to Atlas, the staff were very slow to help them, and he had got so tired of waiting he had forcibly lifted and brought a doctor to see Goodish.
So then we pull off, we get to the hospital. When we get to the hospital, I say, "Hey, I got a friend, he need to see the doctor." "Okay, see you in a minute." And he would repeat. The guy with me, he repeat what I say. Every time I say something, he repeated. So I said, "What the hell did they say?" They said, "Well, a stab in Puerto Rico is like a cold in America." I said, "But he's hurt bad." So I said, "Which one is the doctor?" He said, "The one over there, with the board." I grabbed that doctor by the back of his leg, put him on my shoulder like this, just like you carrying a sack of potatoes. And I took him in there where Brody was at. So they rushed him into the emergency. So I sat outside the emergency room for about an hour and a half. And the doctor came out and said, "We got him stable now. You can leave." I said, "You sure?" He said, "Yeah, you can leave now until you come back and see him in the morning." I said, "Well, can I just stay here? And can I talk to him or what?" He said, "No." He said, "It'd be best. He's getting his rest now." So I left. Then I get to the arena. "Oh man, I got this arm bar, I got this." I go. They talking about their freaking match.
Wow.
They just like nothing happened. They talk about, "Oh, what a great match. Hey, we really got the people going, did we? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And this is guys here in the hospital fighting for his life, and these guys celebrating the freaking match."
Leaving Frank Goodish in the care of the Puerto Rican hospital, Tony Atlas returned back to the locker room of the stadium where the police had already begun questioning others on what they had seen. According to the police, it was told to them that a ravenous fan had broken in and stabbed Goodish in the hallway before he fell into the locker room. Atlas was one of the few who actually spoke up and said something about the true assailant, just as Jose Gonzalez had returned to retrieve his wrestling gear. The police work was poor and easy to criticize due to the fact they believed that the wrestlers were using the situation as some kind of fake storyline, when in reality a man had been stabbed with very few witnesses. Not understanding the line between reality and the world of wrestling, the police left with very little leads. After the matches had concluded, Tony Atlas went on record saying that he'd been alerted by Savio Vega. Apparently the owners and Gonzalez were looking for him because he had talked to the police. Everyone was in a panic, including Frank Goodish's wife Barbara. She had been alerted by the situation and immediately flew out to Puerto Rico. However, she wouldn't be lucky enough to get there in time and only found out about Frank's passing the day her plane landed. Police interviewed every wrestler that day, but couldn't recover the weapon used to attack Frank. Jose Gonzalez was arrested, but immediately posted bail. It was said that he never even saw the inside of a cell. Many of the wrestlers were subpoenaed to appear in court afterwards, but the trial had concluded over a week before they had been received. With no witnesses in the case, Jose Gonzalez was able to claim self-defense without testifying, and it's widely believed that the jury was influenced by Frank Goodish's Bruiser Brody character, thinking that how he was in the ring was how he was in his daily life. Because of the blurred lines of the pro wrestling world, a known murderer, Jose Gonzalez, was able to walk away free, and to this day still has influence in the Puerto Rican wrestling territories. Frank Goodish has been inducted posthumously into Wrestling Hall of Fames around the world, including in America and Japan. His matches, his character, and the love he had for his family will always be a focal point for those who respect him and had gotten to know him.
Didn't ever guess that I was going to be a professional wrestler. Once I started in professional wrestling, learned sort of the ropes and the ins and outs. If I had it to do over again, I think that I would probably even pass up my 3 years in the NFL and devote them to wrestling because it has been that good to me.
Thank you very much for watching. I know my uploads have been a little inconsistent, but I do want to make sure the quality of the videos is there for you all. I also want to thank everyone for the amount of support I've received, and a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for reaching 1,000 subscribers. You guys had me giddy and left me in awe, and I cannot express how much it really means to me that you enjoy the videos. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and maybe even subscribing to see the next upload. Remember that you're loved, and I look forward to broadcasting to your screens once again next time. Sleep tight.